Chris Walker, Emergency Preparedness Coordinator for the Hamilton County Health Department, joins me this morning. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, ma'am. How are you?
I'm okay. Been a rough weekend for the state of Indiana in terms of COVID. Can you kind of bring us up to date on what we're seeing and taking a look at the latest numbers and interpreting those for us?
Sure. What we've seen is ever since we moved into stage 5 under Governor Holcomb's back on track plan, we've seen a rather large growth in the number of positive cases throughout the state. And that's reflected by that 11.4% positivity rate there for unique individuals. So what that says is, if you go in to get a test this week, you're only getting counted once, no matter how many tests you get in that 7-day period. So something for folks to file back in the back of their mind is, once you've gotten tested, there's really no point in going back until you're through, your 14 days of exposure. So, but when we look at our county, if we drill into that, you can see that we're not showing the same growth rate that the state is for positivity. I mean, that 6.1, that's virtually half of what the state is showing. And we do know that particularly in the southern part of the state, Vandenberg County in that area, they've had a difficult time. Northeast Indiana up along the Michigan border, Lake County's traditionally had issues. It's not unsurprising. What's good to see is that we're not growing at that same rate. So we're still kind of hanging tough and staying the course, so to speak.
Yeah, we are in a minority, definitely in this blue color. What do you attribute that to?
I think the new term I've heard is pandemic fatigue, which I can assure you is real. I mean, we're all, I think, tired of hearing about it. I think we've gone through multiple holidays of not seeing our family and having to social distance. Our restaurants are opening back up at more capacity. The key is they're still supposed to be social distancing in accordance with the governor's executive orders. Folks are starting to have more large gatherings. We were talking before we started the interview about fall break. People are still having those private gatherings and things like that. We're still not seeing, large scale transmission in the school districts and in the classroom. So that's a good thing. I think it's just people are kind of getting tired of having to do it. And that, unfortunately, this is the repercussion of not remaining vigilant.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that because ICU bed availability in our district is only a third of our beds are currently available. Now, only 11% of those beds are being used for COVID, but that seems alarming to me that our caseload is pretty low relative to the rest of the state, but we only have a third of our ICU beds currently available.
Sure. So our district is Marion County and all the contiguous counties, so an 8-county area. So let's keep that in mind as we talk about this. We look at our census and, one of our hospitals was relatively high on their ICU occupancy versus their availability. Some of the others that we track were more in line with what we would expect to see outside of the pandemic. The thing that's difficult to track is folks that maybe go seek medical attention in Marion County or Boone County or something like that are from our county. So it's hard to say, but most of the hospitals have moved back to pre-surge, and pre-pandemic levels of staffing. So while we see that, our current capacity is down, that does not mean that we cannot expand that capacity as needed as well. But what we do see is the very low numbers of COVID cases that require hospitalization and occupancy in the ICU as well. So
I think it's interesting to note too that we have a lot of ventilators available, but that's probably not a really great indicator at this point because that's not really their preferred choice of treatment right away, is it?
Right. When we first started all of this, ventilating folks was one of the top invasive measures to use. And at this point, it's really become a matter of last resort, is my understanding. There's steroid treatments. There's other methods of treating the issues without having to ventilate, because ventilating someone is a very intensive, invasive procedure. And really, you're only supposed to be doing it for a certain period of time. So really, it is back to where it should be. It's kind of that measure of last resort.
All right, so we've had a bunch of school districts out on fall break. Some of them are returning today. Some don't come back for another week, and we know that people have been traveling. So any tips, thoughts for those folks who've been out on trips and are just now returning?
Well, I mean, I would hope that when we planned our trip, we planned to maintain our social bubble as best we could. I mean, I do know of people that have gone down to or gone, out of state and planned on going out to dinner or whatever. And once they saw the crowds and things like that, they changed their entire game plan. So hopefully a lot of folks did that, and they took the lessons that they've learned and that they've heard about social distancing to heart and applied those. The big thing I would say is, you need to be closely monitoring for the signs and symptoms of COVID-19, the shortness of breath, the difficulty breathing, and if so, obviously stay home from work, from school, wherever, and go get tested. It's one of those things where, I certainly understand the need to get away, but, even when we do that, we've got to make those smart choices. I think we need to be prepared that, our kids might be coming home from their pods for that short two, the case may be, as a result of someone maybe letting their guard down over fall break here. And hopefully best case scenario, everyone did the right thing. We don't see any problems, but this will be a good test as we head into the holidays in the next weeks or so.
Yeah. And we probably wouldn't expect to see that surge from fall break for a couple weeks if it does come, right?
Correct. We're still looking, 2 to 14 days is typically the period in which signs and symptoms appear. So we would not be expecting anything at least until probably middle of the week for most school districts.
So we're really hoping that people are coming back from fall break with nothing more than some souvenirs if they haven't brought anything else back with them.
That's correct. That is the hope.
Excellent. Chris Walker, Emergency Preparedness Coordinator for the Hamilton County Health Department. Thank you once again. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.